Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Phil Wood, the Chairman of the Members Advisory Council of the St George's Club. I'd like to welcome you all to the 2012 Annual General Meeting of the MAC and to call that meeting to order. Thank you for caring enough about the St George's Club to spend this afternoon with us at the Embassy Suites in Boston. Elaine Gordon-Cragg, the only lady on the top table, I'd like to acknowledge her and thank her for arranging this meeting. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of frustration. Even up to about half an hour ago, because the hotel has double booked our room. We should have been in the big room over on the left. They claim to have no knowledge of the booking. The lady that the booking was made with is not answering any calls at all. So whether she'll have a job on Monday, I don't know, but there we are. We're indebted to you, Elaine, thank you. Elaine's also asked me to point out that there is some complimentary refreshments just outside and that the washrooms are effectively the other side of this wall, round the corner and back again. We've not been advised of any fire alarms, so if one does start, run like hell. That way, I guess, where it says exit and then straight out the front. And there's one at the back as well. I'm going that way. The bar's out there on the way. The agenda for the meeting has been distributed. There's time allocated at the end for questions, and I'd be grateful if you'd wait for that time so that we can deal with the required business first and the reports that we need to get through. Yesterday, from about 9:30 till 5 o'clock, we had the fourth of our 2012 MAC committee meetings. And I'll start with this agenda by repeating the words I said last year, and Roy Van Brunt as chairman the year before that also said. The very existence of the MAC, as we are known, is the response of the developer to the Bermuda government's requirement in the Time Sharing Act that the developer create a mechanism that will allow input from the members as to the management of the club through the creation of an advisory membership structure or tenants association. The club's Rule 29 establishes the MAC for that purpose and states that each owner week shall have one vote in the proceedings of the council equal to the number of unit weeks covered by their purchase agreement. So regardless of what week you own and how many bedrooms it's got, you get one vote for each week in the MAC elections. There's one MAC member for every 10 units at the club. And since the club currently has 70 units in service, which equates to there being 7 members, the MAC is structured with the terms for your elected representatives being 3 years. Therefore, every year, either 2 or 3 members rotate off, and new members, or members rerunning, are elected. All MAC members serve without any compensation whatsoever or benefits. They're merely reimbursed for legitimate costs for travel, subsistence and hotel for the meetings that they attend. They each devote substantial time to the job. My file of incoming emails that's MAC related has reached over 5,500 in the 3 years that I've been on the MAC, the last 2 of which as chairman. I'd like to just introduce you now to all the MAC members that are here. Unfortunately, not all 7 members could be present today, but starting with members whose term ends at the end of this AGM, we've got Elaine, I've mentioned before, Elaine Gordon-Cragg from Halifax, Nova Scotia. She's a renowned dentist and real estate development executive, started her ownership in the club in 1999 and owns 5 weeks that expire in 2027. Jeannie Leone, who is from Farmington, Connecticut, can't be with us today, unfortunately. She's a retired banker, currently a realtor, owns 1 week which she bought in 2007, which also expires in 2027. And then there's me, from Shropshire in England. I'm a chartered accountant and a partner of my own accounting partnership, the first non-North American elected by the membership since the club began. And I own 4 weeks that I began the purchase of in 2001 and that expire in 2014 and 2018. Those members whose terms expire at the end of next year's AGM: Robert Barrett, on the far end there, from Cornerbrook, Newfoundland. That was close. That was nearly right, that pronunciation. Yeah. He's a former Canadian military officer and Halifax City Police officer, and now a recently retired agricultural machinery dealer who began acquiring weeks in 2005, now owns 3 weeks expiring in 2027. Ryan Brown, from Arlington, Virginia. He's our secretary, as an attorney and an owner of his own software development business. Began his ownership in 2006 and owns 2 weeks that expire in 2027. Those members that were elected last year, whose term expires at the end of 2014's AGM: Roy Van Brunt, from Englewood, Florida, a CPA certified fraud examiner who began acquiring weeks in 2003, currently owns 5 weeks, most of which expire in 2027. Roy has been our treasurer this year. And the final one is Steve Wexler, who also can't be with us today. He's from Fairfax, Virginia. He's a bankruptcy and restructuring consultant and has 2 weeks expiring in 2017. He's had to send his apologies because he was required to appear in a bankruptcy court yesterday. He tells me it is as an expert witness rather than as a defendant. So you see that the MAC membership is a pretty mature and experienced group, all of whom have the sincere interests in the club and in serving you, the membership. Our disparate ownership of individual weeks has covered 12 of the 48 weeks that the club is open, with 5 of those weeks being off-season and 7 in prime time. So we have a fair amount of being there over a year, which helps our deliberations. You'll also note that the MAC members have been relatively recent buyers, all having bought after the receivership that the club underwent in 1997. Turning now to the 3 members whose terms are due to expire at the end of this meeting, I'm delighted to tell you that both I and Elaine were successfully re-elected, so our terms now extend until 2017. Jeannie was not re-elected, her term has ended, so we must unfortunately bid a farewell from the MAC. I first met Jeannie when she was co-opted onto the MAC to fill a vacancy which arose from the resignation of a former member, Mike Stout, and we have become, I hope, good friends. Jeannie's provided the MAC with a continued source of updates on what is happening in Bermuda and St George's in particular by monitoring newspapers, the web, etc. And I want to take this opportunity to thank her for her service, which has been really helpful to the committee. Also, I've already mentioned Elaine and I were re-elected. The other successful candidate in the elections was Michael Dennis, who's there at the back. Michael's from San Antonio, and he owns week 35, expiring in 2027. And Michael attended the committee meeting that we had yesterday all day. I mentioned the developer earlier. The developer of the St George's Club is an entity known as it's St G Club Limited, and the principal shareholder, the main shareholder of that entity, is Sally Ann Kyle, who unfortunately is not with us today. Sally is of course also the general manager of the club. The date for this meeting was set at our On Island meeting in February, and Sally and John were informed of the date following that meeting. You may have read in the latest newsletter that was posted on the club's website in August that Sally and John, who's the proprietor of Seasons and Gateway Limited and is the managing agent of the club, had decided that they would not attend today. Reference is made in that newsletter to the reasons why they think they wouldn't attend. All I would say to that is the lack of attendance at MAC meetings does of course mean that communication between us and them is ever more difficult to resume if we can't meet them. If you've got any questions on any matters raised by Sally and John in the newsletter, we'll be happy to deal with them during question time at the end. The minutes of last year's AGM, held in Newport, Rhode Island, and taken by our Secretary Ryan Brown, have been posted on the website since last year. May I have a motion to approve those minutes, please? Thanks, Bo. Everybody in favour? Aye. Thank you. Now I'll just take a few minutes to summarise what the MAC's been doing for this last year. To try and improve communication between us and the members, we've set up our own website. The problem we had was that stuff that we were sending to the club to be posted onto the Mac section of the club's website was not being posted, primarily because we think the club managing agent didn't agree with what we'd said at the Mac meetings. But what we'd said is what we'd said. So in the end we decided the best way to deal with that was to set up our own website, which we've got control of. And that website is www.stgeorgesmac.com. Very similar to the club's. If you go onto the club website and click on the Mac section, you'll see that's the same but with a hyphen in. Ours hasn't got a hyphen. So it's stgeorges mac.com. That's under our control, and we post all the Mac minutes on there, newsletters, communications between us and the government, both ways. So we are being as open as we possibly can be with members, and I trust that you appreciate that. And it also, of course, saves considerable amounts on postage, stationery, etc. We also continue to host the Timeshare Exchange website, which one of Ryan's colleagues in his IT business prepared for us. And the address of that is www.timeshareshare.com. That's timeshareshare.com. And I think Ryan will talk about that a bit later on.